What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. So a friend of mine asked me to get back into another Pelican Bay story and try to give a better understanding of the difference, how different Pelican Bay was from anywhere else. And so like I always say, I understand there's this fascination with Pelican Bay. There's this mystique about it, right? But it's important that people understand that fascination and that mystique had to do more with the shoe. C and D facility were the shoe. A and B were the GP yards, main lines, right? And everything about Pelican Bay was different. But I want to try to paint the picture for you guys. Like, look, it didn't matter what yard you were on. And I'm going to speak from the old times as far as when we had group yard. And then we can get into more modern times with it as well. So back when we had group yards, you know, they stopped the group yards, I think, in 2002, somewhere around 2002, 2003. And that's when they implemented the dog runs, like the little dog cages, dog kennels, and they were putting men in there. And prior to the dog runs, when you went to Ad Seg was probably, in my opinion, the most dangerous place to do time. I know Wes Watson says the Chow Hall was the most dangerous. I don't know where he got that from. But group yards and Ad Seg were extremely treacherous as far as for like the Southerners and the whites. You know, Southerners and whites shared the yard group together. And you would have dudes who they either, you know, maybe they caught a murder, attempted murder, whatever it was, but they were there for putting in work. They knew they were going back to the shoe. Really had nothing to lose, didn't give a damn. And politicking was a whole lot different back there. When they had the group yards, if it wasn't your business, you didn't stick your nose in it, period. Because there were dudes just sitting in the cut, miserable, that were hoping someone would give them a reason. You know, we would show cariño to some dudes, some youngsters, when they would come in and they were just a little too loose, a little too wild, and they would be like, hey, send him on one. Ask him if he's willing to help out. If he is, that was the only cariño he's going to get. Because they're going to ask him, hey, homie, hey, want to know if you could do us a favor. If he says no, they'll just whack him. Fuck him. He don't get no love. But going to Ad Seg back then when they had group yards was very different, and you were going to learn fast or learn hard. Up to you, right? So later, when they implemented the dog runs, the dog kennels, whatever you want to call them, things got sticky. I was frustrated. I know a lot of people were frustrated by those, and that was a great thing that the CDC came up with. Because what happened was, you know, when you were in Ad Seg, and back when there was group yards, when there was an issue that needed to be handled, whatever needed to be presented was presented. The only ones speaking were those involved. And the issue was going to be determined pretty fucking quick and dealt with as soon as they came to their conclusion. Okay. And again, vatos that didn't have nothing to do with whatever's being discussed, even if it was their brother. Maybe sometimes dudes would step in if it was a brother. But if it was your close homeboy, whoever it was, Aeons, you know, I'm not sticking my nose in that shit. If you didn't have something personally to do with it, you did not speak up, speak out of turn, none of that. If they want to hear from you, they're gonna ask you. Once the group yard stopped and they implemented the dog cages, the dog runs, you would have vatos who are loosely associated with somebody that they know is under investigation by the homies. And this motherfucker's gonna send a weed line. Hey, well, look, Holmes, you know, so-and-so this, so-and-so that, this, that. And, you know, we would get those weed lines and we'd be like, this fucking clown right here, eh? See, but he's doing that because he's one of them cats that's gonna run to the bay back when, you know, before they let everybody out. And he's gonna go crying to one of the legends. Hey, well, you know, they did this and that, and I brought up this, and they didn't even look into it. And what they were doing is buying their friend time to write somebody in the bay, write whoever they can, pay whoever they can to fix whatever the situation is. Right? So, ad seg was still very dangerous because instead of getting handled on the yard, once they implemented the dog runs, you were going to get dealt with in your cell. And in those new ad segs, cops can't see in the cell. The only way they're going to know what happened is if the victim starts screaming for help. So those are the ad segs. Physically dangerous. Still dangerous after they made it the dog runs, but not. Things took a lot longer. There were more headaches for whoever was in charge and had to do the investigations, you know, because, you know, when you're in the hole, you have to reach out to, you know, something happens on B yard or A yard or C yard, whatever the yard is. You have to reach out to them. Normally, when somebody comes to the back, you know, there's information coming with them, but there's still things that need to be answered. Once them dog runs got put in effect and you had these fucking little weenies, comadres, corn dogs, you know, just getting in the way, creating smoke screens, it was a damn headache. Now, Pelican Bay. That was different. When you went to that, I was never afraid. I don't understand like being afraid to go to Pelican Bay. I don't know. Maybe there were people that were. Unfortunately, it was a goal for a lot of people. Like if you were in that world, that was, you knew. It wasn't if I ever go. It's when I get there. And I've spoke about it before, but I want to speak about it again. Getting out of that bus after that long ass ride, seeing those humongous redwood trees, you're in the, you know, in the forest, in the woods, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You get out of that bus and you see all those COs lined up. They put you in that hallway, face the wall. And all you see is corridors, right? 2 on C side, 2 on D side. And they're escorting you. And they used to escort you initially back in the days. You went to C1. Everybody went to C1. That was orientation. Then as soon as they ran committee, we didn't go to committee. For what? They'd run committee and then they'd tell you, all right, pack your shit. You're going to, you know, C2, C10, D4, whatever. You would go there. Now, walking into Pelican Bay shoe, I need you guys to understand this. It almost feels as though you're going underground. It feels like you're going into a bunker underground. There are no windows. You don't see windows anywhere. You just see a white corridor, white hallway. And you have the cage above you. That's for all the gunners to get into each, you know, pod or not pod, each building, each unit. You're being escorted by 2 COs. Nobody's talking. They're not talking to each other. You ain't talking to them. You're being escorted. As you're walking down the corridors, you'll pass certain doors. That's all the units. You get to your unit, you go in, boom. Whatever cell you're in, they're going to walk you to that pod. Remember, there's only 8 cells per pod, 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top. Section door opens up. You step in. The door closes behind you. You stick your hands out, handcuffed still. In Pelican Bay, if they uncuff your left hand, you immediately grab the top of the tray slot. Do not pull that hand in, or they may break the right hand or the right arm or the right wrist, because they're going to snatch you. As soon as you try to pull your hand in, the other hand's getting pulled back, and there you go. So once both hands are uncuffed, you bring them both in. Your cell door is going to open. There you go. That's your home for however long you're going to be there. White walls everywhere. In the cell, white. A lot of it's broken up. There's a lot of moisture in the air up there in Pelican Bay. You're going to get there. Somebody's going to ask you, hey, homie, hey, Spencer, where you from, man? Wherever you're from, if that's not a homie, one of your people that just asked you, they're going to tell you where your people are in there. You're going to go and you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to ask which legends are there. They're going to tell you. This was back now, now everybody's out. And when you come out, again, boom, you would go to the front of the pod. They let you out for yard or whatever, shower, whatever it is, whatever comes first. You go to the front of the pod, and whatever legends, whether it's 1, 5, 7, whatever it is in that building, you're going to call them out individually. You're going to say, hey, this is so-and-so, or you call one. If you know him, you just call one. That's a touchy one right there, who you call and how many you call. But anyways, you vocalize, you give your name in your neighborhood, and you say, hey, I'm in E-Pod over here, whatever your cell number is. All right, you'll just hear, all right, gracias. You've just announced your arrival for everybody in your unit, so that if there's anything that needs to be said, believe that's when it starts. And I've talked about it before. Pelican Bay SHU was the only place I ever was where they didn't ask you for your paperwork. Wes Watson likes to talk about paperwork. They're gonna just run your name right there. Somebody in there should know you or know of you, or they'll find out about you. Believe that, right? And again, boom, you go to your shower, or the yard, or whatever you're gonna do. Pelican Bay SHU is the quietest place I have ever been in my life where there's people at. Think about that. You can go camping, and you get up in the mountains, wherever you're camping, and that silence that you hear, that silence that your ears start ringing because it's too quiet. Well, you're in the mountains, right? Maybe you're with somebody and they shut up or they're asleep or whatever, but you hear them breathing. Well, the silence of Pelican Bay SHU was very similar. I remember my first SHU term. I was in C4, and I don't remember which pod I was in. I was in E-Pod. Actually, I was in E-Pod. And I remember one day sitting on my bunk, and the cells are big in Pelican Bay. Biggest cells in the state are in Pelican Bay SHU. And outside of the cell, there's the little pod, and there's the stairs are out there, and there's a white wall, and there's a pole, there's a pipe that would run across the wall, and that had the electrical wires in there. And every day I would sit on my bunk. If I didn't have my headphone in for my TV, every day I would sit on my bunk when I didn't have my headphone in, and I could hear the electricity in that fucking pipe. Every day. It was like crackling. I remember telling my cellie one time, That right there could drive a motherfucker crazy. Pelican Bay Shoe was not a place for you to really have to be, what do I say, concerned too much with the physical. Pelican Bay was completely 1000% in your head. Everything about Pelican Bay was built to break you mentally. That I've talked about. California Youth Authority was the worst experiment on juveniles. Pelican Bay Shoe was the worst thing for human beings. Human beings are not supposed to be isolated like that. You know, there's people going to talk about ADX. I was never in ADX, so people that were there can talk about that. Especially if they were in Pelican Bay and ADX, and then they can do the contrast. Anybody that's been in both places should do that video. But Pelican Bay was extremely mental. It was a place, I've said, where it was the MIT of criminology. It was Harvard, Oxford, whatever you want to call it. It was where you were going to be able to perfect your pedigree as far as being a criminal, a gangster, whatever it is. That's where you were going to be able to do all that. You were going to be around the men who the state of California have identified as the deadliest men in the state. Period. That thing took a long time. And Pelican Bay was not the shoe. Even if there was no legend in your pod, it was not a place to have frivolous conversations. Vatos that spoke frivolously, people didn't. They were kind of like people you didn't want to hear them talk. Nah, fuck you. So hey, homie, you want to play some chess or something? You don't want to hear his mouth. You don't want to hear his stories. Pelican Bay was a place where people tried to be there. You know, there's an old poem. Yeah, it's called The Last Supper. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a line in there where it talks about being of strong bones and light feet, being prepared for war and ready for war. Pelican Bay Shoe, I think that is where you learned not just how to be the best criminal, but you became, most people took that time, because you had so much time on your hands, took that time to educate themselves. Read. You know, I did that video not too long ago about the verbiage or the vocabulary, vernacular, whatever you want to call it. How you can tell people who have done a lot of shoot time from those that didn't. Because for the most part, their vocabulary is better. What they speak about is going to be different. It's going to be elevated. The little bullshit, if it ain't making money, they don't even want to talk about it. Your mind, you get more focused on the things that matter in that world. The ones that don't are usually the ones that, you know, leave a bad impression on people that you don't want to leave a bad impression with. But anyways, that's just a glimpse. I wanted to try to give you guys a better glimpse at how Pelican Bay was different, especially the shoe. You know, and I'd say, you know, people would be bullshitting on the tier. You know, if nobody's out there, you know, doing nothing, you get on the tier 5-10. You know, you don't take up the tier, but you be on the door chopping it up with the homies, clowning and stuff. That did happen in certain places in the shoe, but for the most part, it was just quiet, man. You would hear chess games all day long. For those that don't know, they number every square on the board, and they just call out the numbers. The guy you're playing with, he's 4 cells away. That can't be 5 cells away. 4 cells away, he makes your move, and then he calls his move. I can say, I have said, and I can say that Pelican Bay Shoe was the place where I did the most time as far as the most respectful. It didn't matter what faction a person was from. Everyone in there showed everyone the utmost respect. You weren't going to be disrespectful, and they weren't either. Even if you didn't like the cat, couldn't stand his faction, doesn't matter. Everybody, I can't say everybody, a lot of times, everybody in the pod would break bread with each other. You know, I remember being in a pod where upstairs, one of the legends, every Sunday, he would make tamales for everybody in there. We would all send him, you know, chips and, you know, like our Sunday breakfast, and that he enjoyed doing that. Hey, whoever wants to get in on tamales, send your stuff, boom, and he would hook it up and send it back. And in Pelican Bay Shoe, your light was your oven. I don't think I've ever spoke about that. We get our lunches in the morning. You get your sandwich. If it was a meat sandwich, they would have the little meat and little cheese, and you hook it up and you put it on top of the light. Boom. Your bag of chips would come in a little wax paper bag, stale. Put them on top of your light. It crisped everything up. The bread would get toasted. The cheese would melt. The sandwich was warm. Well, when they made tamales, you throw them up on the light, leave them up there about 3 hours. Cheese inside is melted. It's warm. But everyone who wanted to participate in there, didn't matter what faction they were from, would participate. You know, this is before the whole and the hostilities when everybody came out. That's how it was back there. That's why I trip out, man, when I'm hearing certain people use certain terms. You know, I just heard a rapper being disrespectful towards the North, and I'm just like, I don't know. The fuck do I know? But anyways, that's my video for today. It's longer than it needed to be probably, but I was trying to give you guys the best opportunity to understand how different that place was. Hold on, before I end. Matter of fact, let me go another couple minutes. Supposedly now, Pelican Bay is shut down. I've seen pictures now where they have a table in the little pod now and a flat screen on the wall. I am all for rehabilitation. I believe in it. It worked for me. It worked for thousands and thousands of lifers that have gotten out. Thousands. But the majority of us did time in that shoe. And that shoe forces every man that goes in there to figure out who the fuck they are. That's the only way you survive that place. And I wonder now, if there's no more shoe, will people hit that rock bottom where they have to figure out who the fuck they are and get that understanding? Because once you figure out what makes you tick, why you made certain things okay in your mind, then you can start making the changes in your life to better yourself and hopefully get the opportunity to come back out with your family. I'm hoping there's another way. I'm hoping that there's a different thing that they're applying and that it sticks. Because the last thing we need is for lifers to come out who haven't all the way healed and they fuck it up for the rest of the guys that are in there. I'll say this though, I think that if a couple dudes come out here and do some shit like that, when they get in there, they'll handle them for it. Anyways, that's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.